Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Unravel Your Mind. We're here to transform relationships to love and life. And there's some great questions coming up. So let's jump right in. Of course, it's the holidays, but a lot of these questions that are asked are really relevant for all year long. The first one I think is a good one. And that is, in this crazy time that seems to be focused on consumerism, how can I stay grounded and focused on the things that are most important? I think it's really setting that intention of wanting to bring a deeper connection to people and to not want to just buy something because of a name brand or a perception. Isn't that what we get caught up in a lot of times, is the value of something based on what everyone else thinks about it? And that is real consumerism, isn't it? Just going out to buy things to really have an external relationship with these products or things. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that the question is, how can we shift our focus and stay grounded on the things that are most important? So I think the first question would be back to you. What is it that is most important to you? What is that for you? And then finding ways to bring that forward to everyone else. So let's see, for example, if having fun is important to you, then do something that's about fun, not about something that is perceived to be fun and means you have to consume a bunch of things because it's just like the thing to do, right? So you want to identify, well, maybe having fun is like actually having people over to your house and drinking eggnog or glühwein or something, as opposed to going out to a beer garden or a group that it's all about shopping or something that's more on that consumerism end, right? Because I feel like the question is more about connection. And so it's about finding what's important to you first and foremost, and then bringing that forward for everyone else. Because when you set the example, then other people want to follow. So consumerism is obviously a big part of what we've now seen the holidays and Christmas and other other big religious events during these last few months of the year. And I think it's a great question to be asking, like, how can we shift away from this? I know there's a part two to this question as well, and that is, how can I help my family and friends make a shift to focus on connection versus consumerism? And we talked about that on one of the previous shows, but I want to talk about it again because I want to answer the question, but also because I think the connection part is so important. We get really trapped in buying gifts that don't necessarily reflect the connection that we have with someone. And I'm saying this probably from a more mature standpoint, meaning that I'm not talking about gifts for children or younger people who may have a specific list of items that they want. And even if they do, I think there's a personalization that we can do for these gifts. Something that makes it not just a mug or a toy or whatever, but maybe it's actually personalizing it. So actually, I'm going to go back now. That's coming to me to say that maybe it is a toy and it is for a smaller child, but that you actually write something on it with a Sharpie marker, so that when they're playing with it, that they understand that it's being given to them with great love and that you're thinking of them. Maybe it's giving a puzzle that is actually a picture of you and that person, as opposed to a puzzle of some other character. And as we come into even the adult gifts, I think that it stands true for that too, because everyone kind of has what they want. If they don't have it, they go buy it. I think personalizing everything that we give, writing on it, maybe we give a hat, but we add an extra stitch or something on it that we know is like really personal to them, that makes it feel like a connection. But I also think that just having the word games comes to mind, and I don't really mean games, but maybe activities or games where you're doing more Q&A, right? I think a lot of times we get to parties and gatherings and we talk about politics and we talk about all these things, our job or the state of the economy or things that are relevant and happening, but they're not the things that are bringing us connection and joy and cheer and what the holidays are all about. So perhaps before you go out, whether it's a family gathering, a friend gathering, or you're just simply going out to something that you've never been to before, maybe come up with 1 or 3 questions that you want to ask people that facilitates connection. I mean, what do we usually ask? Like, oh, what do you do for a living? Well, maybe that's not the real connecting, heartfelt way to start a conversation. Maybe it's something about, what is your biggest passion in life? Maybe it's just jumping into something like that. If it doesn't feel appropriate, of course, then have a couple of others that are in your back pocket, but something that helps you learn something more about someone else's heart, right? Not just about like the physical things of like the logistical things of what they do for a living, where they live, none of that stuff. Yeah, I think coming up with some really good questions before you go out and then reflecting on it, afterwards too, like, gosh, what new things did I learn from people because of these new questions that I asked? Yeah, I think that's gonna change a lot about connection versus consumerism, because then you're not necessarily just talking about the things that you want to consume or the things that you want to do out there, but you're talking about the heartfelt things that are in here. And I think that's where we get the greatest form of connection. All right. If anyone has any ideas that are listening to the show, I always love the interaction. So please, in the notes, add anything that you feel is great about getting to connection versus consumerism. All right. Let's go to question number 3. Question number 3 is, I'm a people pleaser, and I wish I could stop this because then I don't get what I want because I'm worried about hurting someone's feelings. How can I stop doing this? Well, I'm not sure who asked the question, so I'm answering this as I always do, quite broadly. I think it's interesting. I think people pleasers think that they're pleasing others when they're actually torturing others. Oftentimes, people pleasers are the hardest people to be around because they're not actually telling you what they want. And as humans, we do want that interaction. We do, unless you're just a controlling person, you want the other person to tell you, like, what do you want? What are you feeling? What would make you happy? And when we put that filter on and we try to say something that we think is going to make the other person happy, in the end, and maybe in the moment it doesn't feel torturous, but in the end, it's almost always torturous. Why? Because it backfires, right? The person does something that they didn't want to do to please somebody else. And then it comes out later that, that person was grumpy doing it, or, they resented the person that they didn't do what they wanted to do. And it's just a mess. So it's like, get to the heart of the matter in your own heart. Figure out what you want. Sit with it, be with it, like, and then say it with confidence. Oh gosh, this is what I would love to do. And what are you thinking? Right? So it's that communication that's so important, and it's how you say it as well. So the person that thinks that they're the people pleaser, I think the way that you go about saying these things is also really important. And that's probably one of the reasons why you think you've become more of a people pleaser. But if you really think about how you can say it differently that won't hurt someone when you actually say what you want, right? So it's not about like getting what you want. It's about sharing what you want, sharing how you feel, sharing, what would make you happy, and finding out what would make the other person happy, and then coming to a place that's maybe somewhere in the middle, or maybe it's like, okay, hey, yeah, let's do your idea today and we can do my idea tomorrow, or it's about that. So just please know, if you do feel like you're a people pleaser, unfortunately, I'm here to tell you that chances are you're actually a torturer, and I know you don't mean to. So just feel into that, because it's really a really important discernment for you to have, to be able to speak your truth and to say what it is that you're thinking and feeling. It's always better for the people that you're involved with in the end, I promise you. And if you're not with people that you can tell how you actually think or feel, it's a big red flag that perhaps you need to think about new people to be with in your life, because you're probably not hanging out with the people that are really there for your best interest. So note to self, if you're feeling that uncomfortable, if it's not something within you, then it's probably something that is within them that you just really don't need to be around. All right, let's go to the next question. Number 4. I went out for an evening with a friend. She left early to meet an old boyfriend, which was unexpected as I thought we'd planned to be out all night together. I'm upset about it and feel she should call me and apologize. Who should call who first? Well, I'm never really in that like who should call who first. I think it's a how do you feel about your relationship with her, and was there clear communication up front about what you were actually looking to do? And let's assume that there was, because it sounds like from this that you thought that you both agreed to be out for the night. And somewhere along the way, this person sounds like perhaps just kind of abruptly left you. I think the best thing to do is to understand what that person's situation is. And if you didn't have the time right then and there, let's give people a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to actually answer this 2 different ways because it depends upon your relationship with this person. But give them the benefit of the doubt that there was something really important, something really burning for them to change plans midstream, mid-course. And give them that grace that, I want to understand from them what their situation was. So under that, then you would call them and you say, hey, you left early. I thought we were out for the night. And the next thing I know, you've left and you're going to meet an old boyfriend. It was hard for me to just have you sort of abandon me when I thought it was our night out. Can you share a little bit more with me, like what happened and why this happened? And I think if you come from that more love-filled place of understanding what their situation is, I think you're going to get a very different response from the person. Now, on the flip side, if it's someone that was just legitimately being disrespectful and just like thought they had a better offer and they were going to go hang out with their old boyfriend and ditch you, then you want to look at it a little bit differently from the standpoint that maybe you just aren't with the right friend. Right? And maybe there's something more in there. I'm not saying like over analyze it, but in here, like deep inside, what you're feeling. And if that person's not making you feel like your friendship is a priority to them, then I would reevaluate that particular friendship. But again, it's always about communication. Who should call who first? I don't think that matters as much. I think it's about getting yourself into a space where you can have a neutral conversation, meaning that it's not like one of those where you're so angry that you say things that you don't want to say, because that's when we don't talk, right? Is when we're worried that our emotions are going to take over and control us. So get yourself to that place where you're feeling like, okay, I can have this conversation and also be able to say, hey, when you did this, it made me feel this way, so that they understand how their actions impacted you, but in a genuine way of wanting to communicate, right? Not about blame, not about you did this or you left. No, all of those yous are going to end up in not a good outcome typically. So be very much in, I felt when this happened, it made me feel this way, right? And then you're just in your feeling place. You're not in the blaming place. You're not in the, I'm questioning your friendship place. You're in that place of like, hey, I really want to understand what was going on for you and how that came about. So I would pick up the phone and call, because I'm always a clearer. I love to clear. I think if there's something that's heavy on your heart, that you should clear it sooner rather than later. Because if you don't, you know what happens? The stories just get built and they get bigger. And then you talk to another friend who has nothing to do with what happened that evening, and you just build your story. You build your emotions around it. You build it to a place that no matter what that person says, potentially you're not going to be able to actually have that more heart-centered place, because you're going to already have this case built against them. So I'm always big on, get it out, get it on the table, and don't wait around and mope. I'm not saying that you are, but Don't mope waiting for someone to reach out to you. Reach out to them, get it cleared. All right, let's get on to the next question. Question number 5. Any tips on how to hold space for people whose beliefs are different than yours and maybe even offensive? Wow, isn't this a good time for this question? How important is it to stand up for yourself or just let them be heard? There's so many different topics that we could be talking about with this question. So I'm not sure particularly for this person, but holding space. I think that's, if you're not familiar with that term, it's like where you're literally like holding the space, meaning you're not reacting in a way that fuels the fire. And so it's hard sometimes to hold space, to just be in the moment in a neutral place when someone's coming at you with something that you're like, no, that's not what I believe, right? Whether it's war, whether it's politics, it's always these beliefs. And isn't that interesting that wars happen over religion, which is what? It's a belief. It's a belief. So it's a really relevant question right now. And how important is it to stand up for yourself or just let them be heard? I think having people, allowing them to be heard is a really great thing. I think that it allows people to just voice what's on their mind and in their heart. But I also think we have to have boundaries, right? So if someone just keeps going on and on and on and on, that's not healthy for you either, right? So that's not holding space in the true sense of being in a neutral place for them and for you. So I think that going into this conversation, a lot of times we get blindsided and we don't know that that person's going to really just like go off onto something, especially when it starts to diverge into an area where we feel like it's offensive. Like they're really not thinking about like me as the receiver of what they're delivering. And that's where you need to just have the boundaries and the discernment to say, thank you for sharing your opinions on this. I really see, and then reflect what it is that you're seeing. I really see that this is causing, a lot of anger within you, or this is causing a lot of hurt, a lot of pain. Acknowledge the emotion that's behind all of those words. Acknowledge that. That right there oftentimes helps people feel seen and heard, and it diffuses just a little bit where they're at, because then they're like, oh, you see me, right? And I'd like to offer my thoughts if you feel up to it. And then offer your thoughts in a kind way and use your discernment to stop so that you're not just building a case, right? And hey, I would like to have an open conversation with you about this. Is this a good time, or are you feeling really too emotional about it? And then just kind of get them to gauge back into like, oh yeah, maybe I'm too emotional about this. It doesn't mean it's right or it's wrong, right? You can be emotional about it, but we don't have to project all of our emotions onto someone to a place where it feels offensive, right? And sometimes we just don't even know we're doing it because we're just like so in the moment. We're just so, like sharing our thoughts and our feelings and happy to be heard, even though you might be, really like torturing the person that's listening to you. So I would just, keep your eyes and ears open to be able to validate, hey, gosh, I see this really, really makes you feel, and then fill in the blank, whatever it is you're observing for them. See if that diffuses them. And then say, hey, would you be interested and willing to hear a little bit about what I'm thinking about it? And if they say no, then that's fine too. And then there's also a point where you just say, hey, thank you so much for sharing. I think my cup is full on this topic. Like I'm with you. It's an issue that we're get resolved. Can we just close it out for now and enjoy the space or enjoy whatever else it is that we're doing so that we can move on to something else and maybe come back to this when we're both in a different space or place. And I bet you're going to find that people are like, oh, okay, thanks for just like bringing my awareness to the fact that maybe I got a little too far into a direction that I didn't need to go with you right now in this moment. And then you shift the space, right? So instead of like thinking that you have to hold this space and hold this container, you're actually just gently navigating the topic, the conversation over into another space, right? All right, let's get to the next question. All right. Number 6, I met a gentleman at a gathering and was interested in him. I thought we had a nice connection and he followed up, but then didn't make an effort to get together. Should I stay traditional and wait for the guy to reach out to me? I think it really depends upon the dynamic of like what was happening, what kind of topics you got into. If you felt like you had a connection, like a soulful connection, I'm not saying like your soulmates, I'm just saying like if you felt like there was a little bit more of a deeper connection there and you did have that first interaction, and now they're not calling, I would just feel into what's right for you, because giving them space to just call you whenever they feel appropriate may be the right thing to do. It may give you an indication as to where they're at in their interest in you. But I say that not wanting anyone to play games, right? This isn't about like a he said, she said, tit for tat, like, he called, so I'm not going to call, or he, whatever, like that stuff is, that dating game stuff. I'm not into that. I just don't think that that's necessary. I think that if you feel like, hey, I really want to reach out to this person, then reach out to them, right? Because maybe they misinterpreted something that you said or did, and they think that you're not interested, right? So again, I think it's really just about being genuine. It's about showing up. It's about saying what you really feel. Like, hey, I'm interested in you. And I just wanted to follow up. I know we had a few conversations and then it seemed like it kind of trailed off, but I just want to know, are you interested in having, more conversation and getting to know each other more? Right? You just say what it is. Like, we overcomplicate all this stuff like way too much. I know there are books and there are podcasts and whatever, all this stuff on like dating and how you're supposed to do it and what the man should do and what the woman should do and how to play the game. And I'm sure that's all legit, and I'm sure you can play it all, and I'm sure it probably works. But if you're looking for a heartfelt, centered relationship where communication is the core, then I would just say start with that, right? Start with actually communicating. Because I know sometimes it's hard, like you like someone or you're interested in someone, but you don't want to be overly interested until you know like where they're at. Well, you know what? Give that up. It's like, if you're interested, then you're interested. And then I think the more you communicate, and I'm not saying like over text, I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying the more you communicate exactly where you are when you're there, then you'll learn a lot about that other person. You'll learn about their response. You'll learn, just about their openness to maybe a less than traditional way of communicating. If it's, if you think that you as the woman should wait. Get into your heart and feel it and see what you want, and then just go for it. And then if they're not responsive, then it's their loss, or it's just maybe it's, maybe it's just your way of getting the universe to just move you along quickly. Like maybe they're really not what you thought they were. And it's just a way for you to not have to waste any time, or maybe it's just not the right time. Right. So I know that's a little bit ambiguous, but I think the main point is to get into how you feel about it, communicate it with someone. And if they're not receptive, fine, then you walk away. But if you're not communicating, how do you know? Right? How do you know? All right. And the same for men. I mean, either way, it goes both ways. Like if you are interested, then pursue the interest. All right, let's go to the next question. Any tips on handling narcissistic family members during family gatherings? Many of you know that I just channel the answers. Like I don't prepare anything to any of these. And what the voice says, ignore them. And so I think the whole point of ignoring a narcissist is that they're a narcissist because they need attention. That's what they do. They suck everybody's light and attention because they need to boast themselves to be seen. They want everyone to think that they're the biggest boy in the room, or the gregarious gal in the place. So ignoring them is the first thing that comes to mind. Now, I think there's a way you can do that that's not rude. And that may be that you not just ignore them, but that you just say thank you. and you walk away. Thank you for sharing, thank you for sharing that with a smile, right? And with an energy and a glow that you're honoring who they are, but you're just saying, but I'm going to go into another room. I'm not going to sit here. So let's say, okay, you say, well, Beth, we're sitting at the dining room table. We can't just leave the table. And the narcissist in the family is just, snow plowing everybody. What comes to mind is that you shift the conversation. So you come up with a loving way to say, I try that. I try to do this a lot. Actually, people get into these really negative conversations and I say, gosh, I really love your nail color, or, I literally just shift and divert, but at a time where it feels like there's a pause, and I say something positive to like jolt somebody out of this narrative of like me, or negative, negative, negative. And I know that may feel a little bit rude, but I don't mean it to be. I'm just shifting the energy. Let's talk about, and maybe, someone's nail polish. That was a dumb example, but I just say what comes to mind. Sometimes it's that simple, right? Like we don't have to make it complicated. But then, oh gosh, I realized that so-and-so was talking about this earlier, and I really just want to bring this forward for everyone to reflect on. Right. So, but having a smile, which I know can be so hard at family gatherings, but you got to shift it in here. Like in here, you got to say, I'm going to make a real effort this particular family gathering to bring a different energy and to just see this person differently. And you ignore the annoying part of it. You ignore the part that, don't ignore your feelings. You have that feeling, you acknowledge it. You say, okay, I'm going to release that feeling in this moment, and I'm going to go into another space that's positive and friendly. And if it gets to a place, like back to the dinner table conversation, that like, you're like, this is not changing, and you've tried to shift the conversation, you can get up and leave. Right? I mean, use your real discernment, feel into this, but you can literally just say, this has been beautiful. I so appreciate my time with all of you, but right now I'm not feeling like I really want to be part of this conversation because I've tried to shift it. I'm just making it up, but whatever is actually happening for you. And I'm just not feeling like this is how I want to spend my holiday. I'm going to go to the other room, or I'm going to go home, or I'm going to, just take a break and just do something else. Maybe I'm going to take a walk, or, whatever it is. But all I'm suggesting is that you ignore them in the way that you don't just sit there and stew with it, right? And you definitely don't walk out of the room and then just go complain to somebody else in your family. Like, what does that do? Like, call this stuff out. And if the narcissist is so volatile that they just monopolize everybody, then ask them to leave. This is not the family spirit that we want to be in right now. And if you don't feel that you can come to the table with a different topic or conversation, then I think it's time for us to take a break from the table. There's lots of ways that you can go about this. They're only narcissists because we allow them to be. So it's still our responsibility to state our needs and to shift. And if everybody just turns a blind eye and ignores and sits there unhappy, should we feel bad or sorry for ourselves about that? I don't think so. You still have to take accountability. You still have to stand up for what it is that you need and speak it. So that's how I would deal with a narcissist. I know it's not easy, but we can make it a little bit easier. Okay, let's get to the next question. Do you think it's possible to create new holiday traditions with family and friends? I don't want to feel like I'm swimming upstream trying to accomplish something fun and new. Any thoughts? Yeah, I think we can make new holiday traditions all the time. But I know that some people don't feel that way. So there may be certain family members that you can't do this with because they're just not going to be open to it. Again, I think the way that you approach these conversations from a caring, loving place, hey, I thought of a new idea for this year. I know that you really love to do that, blah, 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 whatever it is. And I love to do it too. But I was thinking, maybe we should do something different. Would you be open to that? And if they say no, or let's say they say no. Then perhaps there's a way that you can say, oh, well, can we incorporate my new idea? Can we add, if it's a Christmas sleigh dinner that you want to do, can we add this new component to it? Maybe it's something at the front end or the back end, right? That, because I don't know why you want to change the tradition. I'm assuming that you don't like it or that you just want to do something new or whatever. But try to work with it. Try to find ways to fit it in. Maybe it's that you don't want to actually go to, I'm making it up, but your sister's house. And you want to have people at your house, or maybe you want to go to your brother's house, or you want to have it at your parents' house, or whatever the scenario is. Work with everyone and communicate. Don't build, again, I feel like the theme today is don't build a case against other people and then go to them and say, here's what I think we should do. No, talk to the person that is going to have the most resistance to the idea. Ask them, how committed are they to this particular tradition? And how devastating or not would it be to change it ever so slightly because you feel X, Y, or Z, right? So I do think you can change those traditions. And I think, especially when it comes to friends, it's even potentially less difficult because, we have friends that kind of ebb and flow and come and go, and our family is traditionally more there every year kind of thing. And friends, if you want to start a new tradition where, the Christmas walk is all about drinking hot cocoa and not alcohol, you can start that and make it fun. Bring, 10 different flavors of hot cocoa or something, right? You just bring things to the table that make it interesting to try something new. And you're doing a taste testing of hot cocoa during the Christmas walk, as opposed to just doing whatever the tradition is, a glass of wine after glass of wine. So bring it with some fun and some new ways of thinking, and then the way that you sell it. I hate to say the word sell, but if it's a tradition, sometimes it's harder to shift. And so the way that you sell it is, with your passion around whatever your idea is. So absolutely, we can change traditions. It's just how we go about it, and maybe you can't do it in the first year. Maybe it comes in the next year, and maybe you just change your tradition ever so slightly so that maybe you do something different before you go over to so-and-so's house, right? Maybe you do something different afterwards. So if they're not willing to change the tradition within their own four walls or their confines, then I think, do something and take it up a notch on the front or the back end. So that might be another idea. All right. And if anyone else has ideas, I always love to hear them. So put them in the comments below. All right. The next question: with the stress of the holidays, how do I keep my sanity and my relationship with my boyfriend connected and on track despite the busyness and stress of the holidays? I think that we could replace the word boyfriend with a lot of different names. And I think that the holidays do feel stressful sometimes, but do they need to? Like, that could be your first question to yourself. Like, do I really need to see them as stressful? Or can I just reframe that and be like, I am busy, but let me prioritize, right? So that's where I would say, whether it's a boyfriend or your family or whatever, like, where are your priorities? Like, do you want to spend the time with your boyfriend? Then bring them along to as many holiday things that you can, or cancel out of some of them, right? Like, why do we always think we have to do everything? Like, why can't we just say, well, no, I'm not up for that this year, or I'd love to. However, I've got this other commitment. And we don't always even have to tell people, like, what are our other commitments, right? So it just depends upon the specifics of the situation. But what comes to mind loud and clear on this one is prioritizing what's the most important to you, and then doing that, not just doing something because it's traditionally what you've done, right? And maybe it's cutting something short. So if you can't invite a spouse or a partner, a boyfriend or a girlfriend to a particular event, maybe you say, you know what, I want to go to this event. I'm going to go for 2 hours, and then I'm going to plan to meet my partner afterwards, right? So then you still get to see them that evening, but you've like set a time, like before you go to the event, that you're going to actually leave. or you're going to see them before the event. And, there's lots of options. I think just prioritize and get clear on your vision for how you want to feel, first of all, and then what you think that could look like, and then stay unattached to exactly how it rolls out, because it's never what we exactly think. So that should help to get over the busyness. And I also think just sometimes when we think that we're so busy, we bring that energy about ourselves. So maybe just reframing that you're not that busy. Maybe it's not about busyness, and it's about prioritization and spending time with loved ones. All right, let's get on to the next question. I feel so much anxiety, not just in my thoughts, but in my body. Sometimes I don't even know why. Is there a technique to overcome this quickly so it doesn't take me over? The first thing that comes to mind is breath. When we start to feel somatically in our body anxiety, there was probably a lot that might have come before that, that we just ignored, or we tried to sort of put at bay, or tried to control, or like, oh, I'm not feeling that. That first moment of, I feel like something might get a little out of control, is just taking that deep breath, right? And just pausing. And the power in the pause is palatable. I just made that up. The power in the pause is palatable, right? Because it takes the breath in, and the breath is spirit. It takes spirit in and brings that awareness. So if you're feeling anxiety, like let's just say, like maybe in your third chakra, like just above your belly button, just putting your hand there and just breathing into the belly, right? Getting in there and really feeling that part of your body, because it starts to get you out of your mind. And if you're feeling the anxiety there, just ask it, like, what is this? Breathe. What is this? And then not get so into the narrative about it. Is it time for this to release? Can we release this? Show me how to release this. It's that kind of thing. It's like just really, really feeling into it. All right. I want to take a moment because I see some comments coming in here. For me, it's harder to practice the shift with family and friends because history lets me predict the likely negative pattern, and I know I will have to deal with them again later. I already anticipate the reaction and hesitate to suggest new things or share news. And yes, I feel already anxious. So thank you for the tips. Today's questions are so relevant to my life. Well, thank you for tuning in. And I think, families do cause us stress. But here's the beauty in families that causes stress. There's a lesson in there. There's a lesson in there for us. There's something about ourselves that we're wanting to learn, something we're wanting to release, something we're wanting to shift within ourselves, right? So if it's confidence in speaking our truth, if it's simply that you're just going to not build a wall, but that you're going to protect your energy field, which is very different than building a wall, but protect your energy field, which means that you're not going to let all of their thoughts and comments like infiltrate your mind to this place where then you feel so discombobulated and off-centered. And be ready when you do start to speak your truth, if that's for you, that you are going to get a different reaction from your family because they're not used to you speaking your truth. And there's going to be also some bravery there and some courage that needs to come in, because they're probably going to challenge you a little bit more. Maybe their characteristic is going to get a little bit stronger. So before you go into a family situation, if it's specific to a family and anxiety, so now I'm kind of taking that other question and bringing it into the live question here, or comment, that, it's still about breathing deep into the body. It's still about breathing in, because when we breathe in and we think about a space or place within ourselves, it helps us to get out of the head. Because, right, that's like most of us are kind of cut off from here up, because we're just like thinking, thoughts, external environment, who's saying what, how do I navigate this, when the navigation tool is actually right here. And I feel like this was something we talked about maybe last week, but again, it's like sitting, like even if you're just sitting at the dinner table and you're sitting with family who you love, but that cause you anxiety, and you're feeling that anxiety rise, Put your awareness on your tailbone. So you're sitting, sit up, get your shoulders back, breathe, let your whole lung, right, open and expand, and be seen. Because what happens sometimes when we have anxiety, we kind of go like this, and we're like, oh, and we don't want to be seen. No, be seen. This is the time to bring the courage and bring the bravery. And maybe you don't even say anything, right? Maybe you don't even say anything, but just having that act of courage to breathe in and feel differently and go to your tailbone, because I think it brings your awareness to the back of you, as opposed to like all of your organs that you're trying to protect, right? When you're feeling like someone is coming after you, you're opening it and you're feeling the tailbone. I don't know. The other thing that's coming is if you do feel like you need a bit of a shield, like, because, you know, putting your chest out means you're putting your heart out, putting your belly out means you're opening, you know, your solar plexus. So if you need to, you know, I don't really think you need to do like a whole like full on metal shield, but just think of a nice warm glowing light, right? Just like a warm glowing light that envelops you and that keeps you in you and them over there. I think if you focus on that, maybe it's a soft blue light. Maybe it's just a soft blue light that you just go, whoo, just stay with me, right? Try it. You may think it sounds a little bit funky or crazy or whatever, but try it. Try it when you're sitting there. People will probably say, what are you thinking about? And you don't necessarily have to tell them, because then they may think you are crazy, but you do just need to sit in your own awareness and your own love and not fall prey to this narrative that you grew up with in families, to think that that's who you are or who you're supposed to be or who you're not, right? So that's the thing about families, is that they remind us so much of our inner child wounds, and they take us back to some spaces and some places that weren't always so nice. But there's a lot of spaces and places that were nice for a lot of us. So, you know, go back to what the good things were in your childhood and in your family, and focus on those. If there's something you love about your mom or something you love about your dad, and they're annoying the crap out of you at that dinner, think about the thing that you do love about them and focus on that. Because, you know, where focus and energy goes, you know, that's where energy flows. So we don't want to fan the flame, right? All right. Okay. Let's see if there's any other live ones here. And I think maybe one of the last questions is, I'm starting to think of 2024. What do you recommend for a New Year's ritual to start the year off right? Well, since we're still in December, technically, and if you're watching this at some other point in time in the year, I think you can use this anytime. When you feel like there's a new start coming, or you want a new start to come, clear out the old, right? So take now until the end of the year, as busy as you may be, find things that you want to donate, give away, clean out, make space for the new in the new year. I mean, a lot of times we spend time writing intentions, which is great, and I highly recommend that too. Maybe less about goals. Sometimes I know people want to argue that, and there's a lot of different camps about goals, but I think it's about the vision and about the feelings that you want to have in the new year, and then opening the space for that. So thinking about, if, like, for example, if one of your visions or goals, if you want to say, for the next year is to bring in a romantic partner, then maybe you're clearing out some of your dresser drawer, right? Making space. Maybe you're clearing off the nightstand on the other side. Maybe you're getting a nightstand for the other side. Maybe, you know, like whatever that would look like if that person was then in your life, like what do you want to clear out to make room for them to come in, right? And maybe it's pictures. Maybe you want to switch out pictures. Maybe, you know, one of the things that we don't often think about, but if you're a single woman, for example, and you have a bunch of pictures of single people in your house, or single, you know, things, maybe switch them out for pairs, right? Maybe you have two lovebirds, literally, or maybe you have two flowers instead of one flower, or, you know, that you start to think about things in pairs symbolically in your house, right? That it's not just all about one. Yeah, there's lots of different things that you can do to bring these things in. All right, so let's see. Recommend for the New Year ritual. I just want to make sure I'm answering the question and it's full. Ritual to start off the new year. So yeah, I would say it's cleaning out the old and setting intentions for the new. And the other thing that comes to mind is to say there might be a new routine. If you don't have a routine, get a routine. And if you have a routine, you might want to just switch it up a notch. You might want to do something a little bit differently. I would say there's a really great couple of things, and I'll probably talk about them again as we roll into the new year, but there's a YouTube series on the 28 days of gratitude, and that might be a really nice thing to start on the 1st of January so that you're following each day the gratitude exercises. So that could be something that can also be really helpful. But get a journal, no matter what. I would say get a journal and have that ready to go in the new year so that you can start really fresh and with a new canvas or a new slate. And another thing when I say canvas is maybe you start a painting, and maybe each month, or if that seems too much, maybe it's like in a month's time, each day you put a little something on the canvas, just something that represents an emotion, a feeling, and it could be just a splash of color. And you can see at the end of the month, what does your canvas say about how you felt during that month. So just a fun little activity that might be something you can put into your routine if you have the space and the inspiration to do it. There's lots of other examples and ideas that you could come up with. All right, I think we've covered off on everything unless there's any more live questions. I'm so grateful for you each week. Thank you for submitting such great questions. Thank you for your replies and your comments. Subscribe, hit the bell. And if you've liked anything about this video, please give us a like, because it helps us in the algorithms and it helps other people and more people to be able to see the great wisdom from all the wonderful questions that you're asking. So thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you next week at 11:11 on Sundays on Pacific time.